Before this video begins, I'd like to give a huge thanks to my channel members, who you can see on screen now. Become a member by hitting the join button and get your name here among other awards today. Hello there and welcome back to some more Silly Car Showdown. Today we are taking a look at the Honda Civic EK9. This car was requested by Sydney88 and yeah, it is maybe one of my favourite front wheel drive cars of all time. I love the little Civic EK9. I think it's an absolutely exquisite looking vehicle, a vehicle which still looks modern to this day, if you ask me. It has loads of race pedigree, incredibly good handling vehicle as well. Back in sort of the Forza 4 days, this was my car of choice, and even Forza 5. Not so much recently because I've sort of stopped building cars up for stuff, but still an excellent car. Anyways, as far as it goes, engine-wise, we have the 2-litre later K20 Honda engine or the Turbo Rally. I'm not going to use either of those. I'm going to stick this car with its standard B16 motor, but we are going to turbocharge it just to get a little bit more power out of it. We do have some body mods, and they're not massively hideous, which is good. We will go for the charge kit properly. I mean, that wing is a little bit ridiculous, but there you go. I believe the charge kit is the one that works with this paint to sort of amplify the sponsorship decals and stuff. I actually quite like the charge kit as well, so yeah. Also, we do get a little bit of additional drag reduction. So 235s on the front, not massively big, but interestingly enough, the EK9 actually gets bigger tyres on the rear, which is very strange for a front-wheel drive car. And this is pretty much the only car I can think of in the entire game that does that. So whether that's going to benefit us or not, I'm not too sure. But it certainly is a pretty interesting quirk. Also, there was no sort of tyre width on this vehicle, tyre width extensions. Can't say I'm too surprised by that because they're pretty much flush with the arches anyway. But with this being a JDM Bro car, I'm surprised it didn't. Putting engine upgrades in this is apparently going to absolutely boost the PI. I'm expecting a mid S1 class car though, in all honesty. It'll probably start slowing down in a minute once the game catches up and thinks, oh yeah, this is a front wheel drive car. Yeah, okay, here we go. We're sort of starting to slowly stop the PI gains, but that's okay. S1 852. 541 horsepower, 325 foot-pound of torque in typical Honda fashion, 2,175 pounds of weight, 4.2 seconds to 60, a top speed of 204 miles per hour. Yeah, I'm expecting this one to be pretty good. We've had a couple of Civics go around the course, and, well, more specifically, we've had the older Civic, the Civic RS, the 74, go around. I was actually a little bit disappointed in myself when I did that lap, because I sort of let that car down a little bit. So hopefully I don't do the same for the EK9, but on paper at least, I'm expecting promising results out of this car. But there's only one way to find out. Let's get to our track. So here we are at our Edinburgh course with our EK9 Honda Civic, ready to set 5 laps to see what time it can set. That is the best. That made English. Our current leader is the God tier Lotus Elise GT1. That's at a time of 131.226 of this car. It's not beating that. In terms of the EK9's sort of projections, I am hoping it can beat the old new Civic RS, which had a time of a 149.295, and the reason I'm crashing into buildings is because I'm trying to look at that time on my right. Now admittedly, that car did have more power, and it had a wide body kit, and probably bigger tyres, but firstly, it does not have the tried and proven track record that the EK9 has in Forza, and also that car, I held it back a little bit. Realistically, that car could have sort of got into 148, and unfortunately never really did. So this is sort of, I guess, the second coming of Civic to see what this one can do. I will say, as much as technically it shouldn't have done because I couldn't brake for that corner, 142 down there is pretty insane in a car which has, I think it's about 500 horsepower, 541 horsepower, and not a whole lot of torque. So, granted, you can hear all 541 of those horsepowers. This is not, ooh my god, lift off oversteer, almost threw me into a building. This is not a quiet, relaxed, retiring car, it has to be said. It is quite loud. It is very loud, actually. It's not a particularly nice, loud noise either. Granted, I know some people like the sound of Honda engines. I know I should like the sound of Honda engines. However, Honda engines do not sound good. I will freely admit to you, I do not like the way Honda engines sound. I should know I have to deal with one. I wouldn't say every day, because the actual engine isn't particularly groany on my car. You can barely hear it, actually. Unless you're, like, really trying to overtake something. But when you do hear it, you hear it. And it just sounds like you are thrashing a sewing machine, so... yeah, hardly a good sound, but there you go. The first section's actually pretty neat in this. I will say, ooh god, front wheel drive handling is sketchy around here. Got to remember this thing is not 4-wheel drive. I sort of try and drive front wheel drive cars like 4-wheel drive around here, and that is not a particularly good thing to do. I also need to bear in mind that in a front wheel drive car, if it starts oversteering, there's not really much you can do other than just sort of spank it one way and hope it will go around the corner the way you intend it to. Which you might notice I'm trying to do with this to varying degrees of not success, so... oh, god. That front end push, there is definitely some understeer coming from the Civic. Again, it does have that weird thing where the rear tyres are bigger than the fronts. In actual sort of driving, that really does not seem to be making any difference whatsoever. The rear end actually has a fair amount of lift-off oversteer to it, and having bigger rear tyres is hardly keeping that in check. Now, I would honestly just prefer to have 245s all round instead of having the weird 245 at the back and 235 at the front situation that we've got going on. But, you know, there's not really much you can do about that. Right. Also another target for this car, perhaps, if it can't beat the Civic RX, is of course the Acura RSX, which is basically a Civic coupe. Granted, that was based on the newer Civic, not this particular generation of it, but that still is a potential target that we could have in mind. A little bit of a bump there. Seems to have got around that section a little bit nicer. I'm too used to driving sort of super powerful four-wheel drive cars with understeer now, so I'm sort of braking for corners where I'm not really going quick enough and just slamming into walls, which I'm trying not to do. That split time is a lot better than it was previously though. We are 2 seconds up on the previous run, in fact, in the little EK9. Coming up towards the Glasgow Smile. Get a chance to really put the power down. I will say, the one thing it's not really doing is it is understeering a little bit. It has got a bit of lift-off oversteer. It isn't actually really spinning the wheels because of the amount of power it has, which is nice. It's doing a little bit in first and second, but beyond that, you can just flat out and it's not a problem. So that's kind of nice and refreshing. Also, front-wheel drive is actually quite nice up towards this section here. Because you can really just sort of plant your floor and plant the foot at the floor and then just let the car take itself around. It's not like something rear-wheel drive and four-wheel drive where you've got to worry about the rear end braking traction, because it can't. It will just sort of surge itself forward. So, you know, as much as people probably would criticise it, and I would say, honestly, especially given its track record around here, front-wheel drive is not the best drivetrain for this course. It certainly has its advantages, you know. It's not just because it's front wheel drive, you don't just assume it's a waste of time. They do actually have some little advantages here and there. On 149.979, I do have to admit that second section wasn't quite as quick as the previous lap was. Just got to be careful going into some of these corners. Because again, as I said, if the rear end comes out, it's not like an all-wheel drive car where you can just swing it the other way and that'll be fine. You actually do need to apply some power, and once you apply power, the car will just head in a direction. So, do definitely need to watch out for that. But yeah, it's actually not that bad. Ooh. Once you learn how to drive it, anyways, of course, being front-wheel drive, it's not the best, but it is certainly doable. Ooh. The actual straight line speed is one thing that is impressing me. It's actually surprisingly quick for 541 horsepower. It does alright, which is certainly an impressive thing from the Civic. There we go. So hot in here. That's also probably slightly affecting some of the runs today. My goodness gracious me, it's hot. There's just no wind in the air. It's just very humid, which is a shame. As a matter of fact, it's Wales. I'd work that one out. Anyways, I do not think this lap will be quicker because I got slightly distracted halfway through it. So that's good. I was there. That corner was nice though. It does drive pretty nicely for, ooh, this is going to be quicker. No, it isn't. It's going to be pretty much exactly the same. Alright, final do or die lap. Let's see what it can do. It sort of looks at the moment, though, like it's going in between the Civic and the RSX, which actually isn't a bad place for it to go, in all honesty. In terms of sort of realistically, that's probably where it should go. I was sort of only comparing it to the Civic RS, which had more power, bigger tyres, despite the fact it was older. I'm sort of saying that more as a potential target, just because I did not drive that car particularly well. But I think I have more of a feel for this car though than that car, so there's something good in there. Yeah, it actually drives pretty darn nicely. I do quite like it. Ooh, that was almost up to 145 down there. That's almost getting into pretty good territory, although that has just ruined me slightly. You can sort of see that thing, you know, where it's just I fall back onto instincts and they just do not work in this car. You know, my instinct through there would be to just push through, push off, just accelerate and use the wall as leverage. You can't do that in a front-wheel drive car. You just can't. It is a completely different driving dynamic, so. And sometimes it's better. For stuff like that, it's really good because you can just flick the front end around really quickly. And in terms of if you're doing sort of showboaty stunt driving, I actually prefer front-wheel drive because you can do sick J-turns. But other than that, there's not really much. You know, it's sort of one of those things where it is an acquired taste. As we rush towards the line, are we going to go any quicker? No, we're going to get pretty much exactly the same lap time again. I'd be interested to see what those last two laps were, sort of in terms of times, because they look like they would be pretty much bang on similar to what this just got. Yeah, not bad, not bad. For a front-wheel drive car, low-powered one as well, you know, you got to bear in mind there isn't all that much power going through this thing. Not bad, certainly. It could have drove a little bit better. A little bit too sort of oversteer happy, I found, just in terms of lift-off oversteer in that rear end. Not a huge fan of that. I know that's why quite a few sort of rear-wheel drive alumni actually like the Civic, because you can chuck it around a little bit. But I've got to be honest, I'd much rather just prefer my front-wheel drive cars to handle like front-wheel drive cars and not try and sort of become cheap imitation rear-wheel drive cars. But this and some of the minis can do that as well. Anyways, with a 149.979, it will put it into 51st place. It is almost exactly a second up on the Morris Turbo Traveller, which was actually a pretty good car. It is also thankfully up on the rubbish Renault Clio EDC, up on the RSX, up on the Sentra. Those are all front-wheel drive. We've got any other front-wheel drive stuff down here? Apparently not. The only things that really beat it front-wheel drive-wise are the Civic RS, I think, and the Limo. Is there anything else that really beat that was front-wheel drive? I don't think so. So, yeah, it's not a terrible time. It does put it towards the lower end of our leaderboard, but in terms of actual overall times, it's not too bad. Especially for a car with this little power. It's one of the least powerful cars I think we've ever had. And on top of that, you know, front-wheel drive and sort of some weird handling to go with it. Again, usually I quite like driving Civic EK9s, but this one is just a little bit too active on that rear end for me, but there you go. Anyways, thank you all very much for watching this edition of Silly Car Showdown. As always, if you enjoyed and you'd like to request cars for the series, you can do so down below in the comment section or on Discord, or pretty much wherever, to be honest with you. Do it on Twitter or whatever. I've sort of... This spiel has gone on way too long. I'm just going to say you can request cars however, which way you want to, and you can figure it out from there. It's probably the easiest way to do it. Anyways, yeah, thank you all very much for watching, and until next time, a farewell.